So, before we get into your work and what has made you who you are, I want to know the last 3.5 years living through this pandemic's been quite a thing. How did you get through it and how has it changed you?
I tell you, when I say the type of resilience I've built through these last 3.5 years, there was once I said to myself, I must be built for this. I must be built for change because not only did the pandemic happen, my father had strokes,
Wow.
and collectively he had 7 strokes. I started my business at the height of the pandemic, and we went into lockdown. The world shut down. So trust me when I say that as the queen of resilience, that's something that I really picked up out of necessity of caring for my family. It's almost like when that survival mode kicked in, I went into thrive. So the
Yeah.
last 3.5 years has been absolutely interesting,
Yeah.
nail-bitingly tough, nails on the wall, difficult, but so rewarding at the same time at home and with the people that I work with. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think the big word I've thought about too is resilience. It's all about building up that resilience and being able to move on from it. So, and I'm sure that just has made you stronger as a individual and as a business person.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the main difference with resilience through the last 3.5 years that we found is that previously, and this is a huge distinction for myself and with clients, resilience was thought about as mindset. And now I think about it as a combination of mindset, heart set, and in whichever way people want to call it, spirituality
Yeah.
or surrendering to a higher being, God, goddess, the universe, whatever, Lord, whatever people want to call it. But this notion of surrendering. So it's like this amalgamation of all three instead of only having the mindset piece. I think
Yeah.
that's the difference with resilience. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's
Mm.
get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I help people fix their brains and their hearts.
Okay.
That was a really good question. That was a really good way you said it, to be honest. I never thought of that. But I help people fix their brains and hearts so they work and live life better, to be happier people at home, at play, and at work. I think that would be what I say.
Yeah, I get it totally. It's a great way of putting it. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
It was interesting because when I grew up, I didn't have much financially, and I just imagined a corner office overlooking an ocean. That was the only thing I thought of as a child. I'll be walking in as a boss. I'll be saying people, do this and do that and blah, blah. And I got that at the age of 28. I was a young leader.
Yeah.
And then when I got that, I realized, and I was in consulting, and I realized that there was so much more to life. And so I changed my goal that I had as a third grader before I was 30
Yeah.
to be more encompassing the change, especially after the movie Horrible Bosses,
Yeah.
to change the world of horrible bosses so that people live better and
Yeah.
are happier. That's all. That's where it starts, to be honest.
Yeah. So let's go back to your beginnings, where you were born and raised, and how did these seeds of being an entrepreneur and helping others get to where they need to be, how did all of this happen?
It's a really heart-driven question you're asking me because when we grew up, we didn't have much. My dad supported us the best way he could. He's a lovely person. He worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So as a diplomat, the way he spoke and the way he interacted with people and the way he brought leaders of countries together, that's something that was so wow to me, that how, he joined forces. He was like a superhero, but he
Yeah.
didn't make much. And then my mom is a loving, naive, people used to use her. And I used to see how love and heart sometimes can be something that's not really rewarded. And so in my brain, I always knew as a child, I want to do something that will help people stand up in their heart.
Yeah.
Like people like my mom, and I did everything for my mom, honestly. From the time I went to school, I studied hard for my mom. I love my mom and I love my parents type of person. And that love is what pushed me through. Now, the seed of being a serial entrepreneur earlier in my life was because I knew I had to make it some way, somehow. Through diversity issues, whatever you call it, I knew that I had to do something different in order to make it big.
Yeah.
And from the age of 24, I was trying things on the side. And now it's normal for people to start their businesses at 19, but before it was not.
Yeah.
So I used to try all these things. And as I worked throughout my career, I saw how a boss was the one person that dictated whether a person was happy, had a broken home, had addictions, had a relationship with their children, and had a good life.
Yeah.
From my first job. And I was, why aren't people doing more about this?
Yeah.
And as I rose in my leadership, as I rose and had a team, and as people asked me what I was doing differently for the results I was getting, I was helping global leaders get results before I was even doing this. And they were, how do you do it? What do you do? Tell us more. And I was like, I have something. I have this heart-driven way of creating teams to get business revenue optimized, high performance, while having alignment, peace, love, and success within the heart of the leader. How much better is that?
Yeah.
Versus overwhelm and anxiety? And so I lived through it. I was in consulting and research for 16 years. And through that, the seeds of this being planted in my mind that I'm just going to change the world of leaders. I'm just doing that. By the time I'm 40, I'm doing that. What happened was that my dad had a stroke when I was 36. Told myself, I know I want to do this. I've done my certs. I've trained hundreds of companies. I've spoken to thousands of leaders. I know the quick fixes, but I also know the pain. I've seen families suffer, struggle. I need to do this now. Yeah. Left the job, got things in place, COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Failed. Changed the business model, learned through failure, pushed through, knowing with my purpose I needed to do this. More so than ever through, people were going whack-a-jojo during COVID.
Yeah.
I knew I had to. I think it was the 18th month of running the business. I got the business model right. My clients were churning in. I was making that impact and change the way I wanted to. And I'm just like, okay, done. And then they went.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So who's been a hero for you? Who's been kind of the inspiration for you in your life?
I'd like to say a multitude of people. Just seeing people, for example, when I read your podcast, I can take things through that tells me this man wants to find the heart and the seed of why people succeed.
Yeah.
That's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
As I grew up, seeing how my mom loves through difficulties, that's inspiring to me. As I met people, I never saw my own light. I always saw other people's light first. And as people told me, hey, you got something. And when I reached the point where I knew I got something, I knew that everyone was a role model in how I was created.
Yeah.
So it's a long answer to a short question.
No, that's great.
I didn't have one role model. It was a multitude of people, all heart-driven leaders. Can I just inject one point here?
Please do.
I think business has taken the term alpha wrongly.
Right.
And people can come at me with this, but we're taking the wolf pack and saying alpha and going, when actually the alpha is the heart-driven leader of a pack that brings everyone together, takes care of the weakest link, and brings the pack to success through survival. They go off on their own, they come back with the food that needs to be done. Yeah. And so this whole Wolf of Wall Street, boiler room, that's people-made, that's man-made, right? Yeah. And so I can be an alpha woman with a heart and a leader who gets results and success.
Agreed.
With my heart, and I think changing that is it's so gleeful and joyful to me. And it's like, yes, I really love doing what I do.
And I think at this point in our existence, it's very important. And I think that notion is probably being embraced more because of mental health and things that we went through with COVID. I think there's a deeper realization of why we're here. We're not here for a long time. We should do it the right way, because sometimes the old ways just don't work and we need to adapt and we need to evolve.
I agree with you 100%. And I think people enclosed and encaged, they never had a time in their lives where mother, father, children, nanny, dog, and cat were all in four walls in their home for a prolonged period of time. Just
Yeah.
that drove people on the edge.
Yeah.
And then with the work and the stress and the layoffs, there was so many layers to adding to that. But that enclosed space, I don't think there's been a time where human beings had to go through that for that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you saw this mental health become a topic to be spoken about because of the number of lives that were lost through COVID, but also through depression.
Mhm. Yeah.
And suicides of just being stuck and isolated, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100% that well-being and heart-driven nature is more acceptable or palatable now.
Yeah.
But it's something that I've known has been like secret sauce
Yeah.
for
Right.
like a whole long
Absolutely.
while. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that people are more open to listening to it.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. If you can meet anybody on the planet right now, whether it's an entrepreneur or someone you admire, and spend some time with them, who would it be?
It would be Michelle Obama.
Okay. What would you
I
what would you ask her? What would be the first thing you would ask her?
I would ask her, I'm all about presence and I'm
Yeah.
all about articulation of how you answer a person and how you connect with a person's heart.
Mhm.
So rather than who she is, just by viewing her, she has all three.
Yeah.
She has that grace under fire, presence, executive presence, and she always answers people in such an articulate way, connecting with their hearts. And I love that. And I just want to ask her how she does it.
Yeah.
How she learned to do it. And sometimes it oftentimes comes from a place of being very vigilant to your surroundings, hyper attuned to people's emotions from youth. And then they learn to be like that. So it would just be interesting to know her story on how she has that so good.
And then as an entrepreneur, what's been like in the realm of business, it's really kind of woven into any country's success story. What's been the most successful entrepreneurial path that you admire, that you look up to?
I think that's a great question because I've tried and failed at so many businesses in my younger years through e-commerce, through beauty, through supplements, through matchmaking. And now with this journey through COVID, I had so many mentors and role models on the online space. My business is 100% online, and I drove it to six figures just through this online model.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how people have incorporated social media, ads, algorithms, and found out how to work algorithms, I can't answer with one person. I've learned from so many business owners, just reaching out to them to say, hey, I don't have the same business as you. I admire your model. Please guide me and teach me how you've done this. I'd really love to know. Out of 100 people, 2 might answer you, and that's the goal that you need.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What is the motivation for you every day to do your work, to succeed, to help others? What is that fuel to get you out of bed and to propel you through each day?
I talk a lot about neuroscience and consistency and alignment and purpose and the big why. Me being here today, I already knew my purpose and my why 10 years ago. And it's living in this track in my head every day that I'm doing this for people who don't have a voice, for POCs who don't have the ability to stand on a stage. There was a study done where 4 out of 5 youths did not see a person of gender or color that was the same as them in a successful viewpoint that they could be represented in and say, hey, I can do this too. There's too few. And so that's another one. And so there's all these reasons I want to give to animal shelters all over the world, like treats for dogs and cats and whatnot. Old folks, I have so many levels of what I want to do for others.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's my mom and my dad and my dog and my home and my little community.
Yeah.
And so when you come from a place of legacy and purpose and impact, that drives. If you come from a place of cost per click, CTR, conversions per day, KPIs and indicators and revenue points, you will burn out. Full stop. But if you come from the heart and you know your purpose and impact and the kind of legacy you want to leave, that's what drives you every single day. Even when it's tough, you imagine and you visualize and you go into this space where just for 30 seconds you live through that and you're just like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So what's been your favorite success story as a professional? What's one that always puts a smile on your face?
I think for me, it would be Indra Nui and PepsiCo's CEO. She was the ex-CEO. And how she led the company while being a woman of color, while being someone who took care of her family and spoke about it in an unshy way, and how she led the company to success, revenue growth, percentage growth year on year, globally. And viewing that story and how she did it, succeeded with everything in her feminine power was something that I really appreciated, because sometimes people think that they need to be too masculine.
Yeah.
And so seeing that as a success story when I was growing up was something that I held on to.
So what do you like the best about living in Singapore?
Oh, we've got the beautiful sun. It's clean. It's green. The walks that I take, it's so safe here.
Yeah.
I think the income disparity is something that has to improve, but at the same time, the good parts about that is seeing what is possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The AI, even in the medical field, the kind of things that happen here, it's very inspiring. Water, we don't have our own resources. We spend millions of dollars to create what we don't have. And the science behind things, whether it's desalination plants, energy, and whatever it is. When I find out the science behind it and the research behind it, I'm just like, I'm so proud to be here,
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, speaking of AI, there's all of these different thoughts of, people are nervous about it or people are embracing it. Where do you fall with AI?
I love it.
Yeah.
I think more people need to inject love into it.
Yeah.
I think as of now, as with anything, once something comes up and a person thinks, oh, money, a lot of people tend to manipulate it. A lot of people tend to use it for ill gains. I saw a video that was AI and a scam of Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not him. And zoomed, I'm just like, that's not him.
Yeah.
Hello, naughty, and people are doing that with AI. Yes,
Yeah.
but if more of us input good into it in the way that we want to spread our message in light and in love, I think AI learns as well.
Yeah.
This is just a belief I have. And it's like, the more smart we get about something that we're scared of, the better it is for us and our
Yeah.
growth as well. As a performance coach, I believe that, like, never, always fail forward,
Right.
never lose to something. So that's something
Yeah.
that I teach. Mhm.
Yeah. And, it's been around for so long. I mean, it's been in all of these home devices, whether it's the Google Home or Amazon Alexa. I mean, it's been around, but it's just all of a sudden more ever present. But that's a good way of putting it. If we put that good energy behind it, I think it's just going to make it that much more powerful for us.
Yeah, I mean, the school systems, industries will be reshaped with
Mhm.
AI. How do we want to reshape it? Do we want to reshape it in fear, or do we want to set how we want it to work for us?
Yeah. True. Very true. So let me ask you this. If you have a dream tonight and you ran into a younger version of yourself, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what advice would you give your younger self?
This question is so good, and I've not been asked this
Good.
by someone else. I ask myself this.
Yeah.
I think the advice I'd give my younger self is look at what you've done. Look at what you've done already. Don't keep raising the bar thinking that you're a failure. Understand your strengths early and know how to mold your skills into the fields that you can create a difference in. Because so many times we're just like, hey, I have to reach this. I have to reach this. I'm not good enough. So many people go through it. I have a client that's 50 that's going through it, 45. My clients are vice presidents and heads of division. So that's the age bracket. They're still going through that. And it's because of this syndrome from childhood. So we talk about childhood and inner child and things like that, where the person was not good enough. And it's a chip on the shoulder that keeps staying there. So if I go back to my younger self at 16, I'd be like, yo, wake up. You're amazing.
That's great.
You're light. You're love.
Yeah, that's great.
That's what I would do.
So speaking of accomplishing and you're enough, of all of the things that you've accomplished and done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Taking care of my dad through strokes.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people there are people who have told me, hey, you're running a business, you're a CEO. That's not a good look.
Wow.
I'm a primary caregiver. Now I have secondary help, but it's tough. It really is. And bringing someone through being totally immobile to use of their limbs just through dedicated, committed hard work and love is the most rewarding thing my mom and I have done for my dad. The second one, which is a very close second, is hearing the stories of people that I've supported because of their lives. I know they're going to get recognized. I know they're going to talk better at work, communicate well with their bosses, gain the recognition. That's a done. But when they talk to me about how they've had the most amazing date with their spouse in 5 years, to just be present and be aligned and be centered, I cried. I think it was last month. I had a client say his daughter came to him and his daughter was like, I think 8. And his daughter said, Daddy, I want this daddy. I don't want this daddy to go.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
That's a huge, that purpose just expands so much for me when I hear stories like that. So that's a very close number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you. There's all these pockets of people in our lives, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? Wow. I'm a light worker. I spread magic and when things can't work, I manifest that it will. When things work great, I manifest that it works better. I put process, logic, and frameworks into things to create it. So I think I'm a light worker. I just make things work.
Yeah.
Well, heart. Yeah.
I believe it. And what's funny about that is that with your backdrop and the way that you're against it, there's a halo of light around you. So you're embodying the actual essence of what you said. It's wonderful. So
lovely.
So if anyone out there wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about you, anything about your world, where can they go?
My website's xfinitysg.com. So it's Xfinity, XFINITYSG.com. And it's me being my literature self. X is the unknown quotient that brings people to infinity to spearhead their growth. That's what my company name means. Xfinity SG.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I love the logo. It's wonderful. So
it's in. Thank you.
Yeah. It's awesome. So thank you so much for opening up. You exude so much good energy and good thought. I love it. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program today.
Thank you for inviting me here. It's been such a pleasure being here. And the questions you've asked me are things that I love being asked that I haven't been asked. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.